Greetings, magic book lovers, and welcome back to another episode of Erudite Magic. In today's episode, I'm going to talk about 5 books that I really wanted to love, but I didn't. In some cases, I spent quite a bit of money getting these books, and they just didn't resonate with me. I believe some of the titles and authors I'm going to talk about might surprise you. People sometimes tell me that I'm too positive when it comes to book reviews, but this is about as close as it gets for me to be negative about a magic book. And even with that in mind, I want to point out to you, my Erudite viewers, that your tastes will change. And so I recognize that some of these books that I'm about to tell you didn't really resonate with me. At some point in the future, I may appreciate them more than I do today. These are some amazing magic creators and authors I'm going to share with you, so I want to be respectful of the fact that these are their brain children. They're sharing their creations with us, the magic book community. So even though I don't necessarily love them today, I have a tremendous amount of respect for each one of these artists for being bold enough to put forth their creations into the world. I'm really almost kind of embarrassed that some of these didn't hit home with me, and I think it speaks more about me than it does about the authors. I 100% respect every author I'm about to tell you about, so the fact that this book is on my list means nothing more than this book did not resonate with me at this time. By the way, if any of these books are among your favorites, let me hear from you down in the comments. Tell me why I'm missing out or what I'm not getting about these books. I'm totally open to changing my mind. And before anybody contacts me, no, I'm not going to sell these books. Without any further ado, the first book on my list is The Darkest Corners by Ben Hart and Neil Kelso. This was actually the book that started it all, and this was the first book review I ever did here on Erudite Magic. I'm sure there were a number of you that if you saw that first video, you may have said, yeah, this guy's not my cup of tea, and I hope that you've come around. So like I said, books are the same way. Maybe I'll come around on this. I'm not going to lie, there's probably not a good reason that I don't like this book. Ben Hart is an amazing performer. He's a super duper inner circle, magic circle, gold star member. He has performed on television. He's widely respected as a magician, performer, and entertainer. But when I got the book, the magic just really didn't speak to me. I felt it was very specific to Ben, which is basically what's advertised, so no beef there. But it wasn't something I could see myself doing, and there were a lot of little nitpicky things along the way that made me dislike the book more than I feel like they should have if I was being totally mature about it. Some of the material just didn't feel like it was very practical to me, and I couldn't tell whether the author was joking or serious. As an example, there was a whole write-up on tying a note to a frozen fly, and then as the fly warmed up, it would take off and there'd be a little streamer behind it. I really feel like this was probably a joke, but it wasn't written that way, and the whole thing was kind of a turnoff for the book. Don't get me wrong, it's a Vanishing Ink book. It's a lovely book by a wonderful performer, so maybe there's something that you get from it that I just didn't. Number 2 on my list really saddens me that I didn't like it more because this guy is one of my favorite performers as a mentalist, as well as teachers for mentalism and the thought process that should go into effective mentalism. I'm talking about Luke Jermay, and many of you probably didn't even realize that he has a book out there on the subject of mentalism. It is Penguin Magic's 2007 3510. That sounds really confusing to put the date in front of there. It's the book 3510, published in 2007, so it's 14 years old, and luckily for me, I picked this up at a very deep discount from the cool box at Penguin. I've watched a lot of videos by Luke Jermay and have a tremendous amount of respect for his thinking process and the way he teaches mentalism, shares his routines. They're just so well thought out, and there's so many little subtle details that he gives. So when I saw a book advertised after watching a few of these videos, I thought, what could be better than learning from Luke Jermay in a video, learning from Luke Jermay in a book? But sadly, I was wrong. I think that this book was rushed through the printing process. There is no editor or proofreader listed in the title page, and after reading it, it seems obvious to me that that's true. There was no proofreader or editor. There are fragmented sentences, a lot of typos, and very little real substance. It feels like Luke is rambling when he wrote this book with ideas, and nobody ever went through and really cut it down. Most of the paragraphs are only 2 to 3 sentences, and the fonts in the chapter headings and subtitles were this kind of grungy, semi-erased stencil font, which somehow made the book feel worse to me. Am I a book snob? Maybe, but I kind of figure you are too, or you wouldn't be watching. Now, that's not to say I didn't get anything from it. There were little snippets of ideas and presentations. So all of that said, I would rejoice to see another effort at a book by Luc Jermay and would be one of the first in line to plunk down some money on something like that. Number 3 on my list is another book that I've actually done a review of here on the channel early on, and I probably was harsher than I meant to be when I did that review. I'm talking about Clouds and Kingdoms by Nate Staniforth. I want to be extremely clear right here. Nate Staniforth is an incredibly talented creator, performer, and thinker. And this book, even though it didn't really resonate with me, I wanted to love it because of the things I had read about Nate, and this was the first thing I ever purchased by him. Ironically, even though this wasn't something that resonated with me, it did help me think through things that I hadn't thought of before in my own performance life. And it turned me on to Nate Staniforth to read and watch some of his other things, which prompted even more thought and more work put into my own act. So there's definitely a benefit to this book. I wanted to love it more than I did. I think a lot of the reason that it didn't resonate with me as much is it's a relatively thin book for the price, and I respect why Nate chose to price it the way he did, but I'm curious if the price has ever impacted how you value a book. In this list, I put this book after Luc Jermay's because there's a difference between a book I got for less than $20, a la Luc Jermay's Cool Box book, and a book that I paid $110 for. I do think that if this had been priced lower, I might have liked it more than I did. If you like Nate Staniforth's thinking, or you've seen him perform and you really like that performance style, you'll probably find a lot more to love about this book. And as I said before, I highly recommend that you check out his podcast, Everything But the Flame, if you want to be inspired to think differently and put more work into your magic to get more impact for your audiences. Like I said, wanted to love it, I just never did. So I'm being honest with you. So just to show you how off the rocker I really am. Number 4 on this list comes with a huge apology and an embarrassing admission that I don't know that I deserve to be taken seriously as a thinker because I left Max Maven off of my top 5 living magic creators episode. Immediately after I published it, I totally realized my mistake, but it was too late. The episode was out there and I'm just completely befuddled as to why his name did not come up when I was doing research and thinking about the top 5 living magic creators. But this next book is one that is extremely popular and for a while was very sought after in the secondary market. They started off as pamphlets in the late 70s up to 1980. I'm talking about the Color series of Mentalism republished as Prism. I have an enormous amount of respect for Max Maven and the contributions he's made to the world of both magic and mentalism. His body of work is unimpeachable, and so this is why when I look at this list, I say, if you're on this list, you are absolutely in some great companies, so I hope no one will take it personally that I don't like these books, because if you didn't love something by Max Maven, you really have to wonder what is wrong with you. But yet that's how I feel about this book. I think that some of it is the older style of the write-ups. There's not a lot of line drawings or pictures, and I'm not that kind of guy even that needs line drawings or pictures to appreciate a book. But I think more of it has to do with the fact that there's a lot of card stuff in here. I'm not so much into card tricks with mentalism. There's some stooging. I mean, in short, there's a wide variety of ideas that should make this book appealing to me, but it just didn't click with me. And there are more modern takes on effects that Max Maven piloted. So I think that if you were a fan of Max Maven in the 70s and 80s and you understand what he gave to magic, you probably appreciate this book more than a young whippersnapper like me. And I'd love to hear from you down in the comments below with what some of your favorite tricks are from Max Maven's Prism. People have obviously spent a lot of money acquiring the pamphlets that originally made these up, so they definitely know something that I don't. The last book on my list here of top 5 books that I wanted to love but didn't is by one of the world's most respected magicians of all time. Everyone knows who the maestro is. I'm talking about Juan Tamariz. And I've met Juan. I attended one of his extra sessions after a Magi Fest. He is a delightful person and just as charming as he appears on stage. He was warm, friendly, giving, but for some reason, I just really never appreciated or cared for the magic rainbow. This book is one of the most expensive on my list here. It cost $150 and it is massive. However, I also found that it was weird, too long, esoteric, and kind of meandering. In short, I found myself wanting to put it to the side time and time again as I started to read. I mean, I think we know I love books and it was hard for me to get through. I think it's supposed to be one of his swan songs, so I will give it another chance, I'm sure, as I mature and have more time to spend reading it. But hey, it's Juan Tamariz. He's forgotten more magic than I'll ever know, so it's gotta be me, right? If there's one thing that I want to communicate through giving you these 5 books, I want it to be this, that as a growing and maturing person, your tastes are likely to change over time. Let me give you an example from my own life. Guess what book was on this list of top 5 books for me back in 2012? It was actually Anneman's Practical Mental Effects. I read it before I was ready for it, and I didn't understand how it was supposed to be presented. I didn't understand how this was supposed to entertain an audience, and so I wrote it off. I read it, I put it on the shelf, and I thought, I don't get it. Fast forward just 1 year after acquiring the book and reading it, I saw Richard Osterlin perform, and my eyes were open as to the potential of mentalism performed well for audiences. It's now one of my Bibles, and easily one of my favorite books. So all that to say, just because a book doesn't resonate with you at this brief moment in time, that doesn't mean you should get rid of it. It doesn't mean that you should badmouth it, because there's probably something there to be gleaned. And so all of these books I will revisit, I promise you that. And if I do change my mind on them, you'll be one of the first to know. In the meantime, I want to know, were you surprised by any of these choices? And if you had to come up with some of your underappreciated books, what would they be? I want to hear from you down in the comments below. If you want to see what my top 5 most read magic books are, don't forget to check out this link to see those books that I just keep returning to time and time again to get more wisdom. As always, my erudite friends, I appreciate you watching, and until next time, keep reading.